The morning the little girl sold her puppy, the sun came up like nothing was wrong in the world, pale light slipping through cracked blinds and resting on a blanket that had not been washed in weeks. The house smelled of old medicine, cold toast, and fear. Emily Carter sat on the edge of her bed holding a small envelope with $27 inside, her fingers shaking, her heart beating too loud for such a quiet room. On the floor beside her, Buddy, her golden brown puppy, wagged his tail and licked her ankle, unaware that his entire world was about to change. Emily was only 9 years old, but she already understood something most adults tried to forget, that sometimes love meant letting go of the one thing that made you feel less alone. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that small actions can change everything, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. Emily's mother, Sarah Carter, had been sick for months. The kind of sick that doesn't scream or bleed, but slowly steals energy, color, and hope. Sarah used to braid Emily's hair every morning before school, humming softly while the kettle boiled. Now she lay on the couch most days, wrapped in a thin blanket, eyes half closed, apologizing every time she coughed. The medicine she needed wasn't a miracle cure, just something to keep her stable until the free clinic could see her again, but even that cost more than they had. Emily's father had disappeared years earlier, leaving behind unpaid bills and a silence that never really went away. What remained was a small house, a pile of overdue notices, and a little girl who learned too early how to count pennies and measure hope in hours. Buddy had come into their lives by accident. Emily found him behind a grocery store dumpster one rainy afternoon, tiny and shaking, his ribs visible under muddy fur. Sarah wanted to say no, but Emily's eyes begged in a way that broke what little strength she had left. Buddy became the heartbeat of the house, following Emily everywhere, curling up beside Sarah's feet, barking at the mailman like he was protecting a palace instead of a failing home. At night, when Emily heard her mother coughing through the thin walls, Buddy would lift his head and whimper softly, as if he understood fear too. Giving him up felt like ripping out the last warm thing they had. The decision didn't come all at once. It crept in over days of unopened mail, over the empty medicine bottle on the counter, over the way Sarah smiled less and slept more. Emily searched online at the library, scribbling notes in a notebook filled with hearts and math problems, learning how much the medicine cost, learning how much puppies could sell for. Every number felt heavier than the last. She cried silently in the children's section between the fairy tales and the history books, wiping her face before the librarian could notice. When she finally posted a small handwritten sign at the edge of the grocery store parking lot, her hands were so numb she could barely tape it to the pole. By noon, a man with rough hands and tired eyes stopped his old pickup truck. He didn't smile much, didn't ask many questions. He counted the bills slowly, frowning when he realized Emily was undercharging. He took Buddy's leash, and Buddy, trusting as always, followed him without fear. Emily stood frozen, counting the seconds, memorizing the way Buddy's ears bounced as he walked away. When the truck disappeared around the corner, something inside her collapsed. She didn't scream or run. She simply stood there until her legs gave out, then walked home alone, clutching that thin envelope like it was her last breath. Emily placed the money on the kitchen table like an offering. Sarah tried to protest when she realized what had happened, but the words came out weak and tangled. Emily hugged her mother gently, afraid she might break her, and promised it was okay, that Buddy was helping them now. That afternoon, Sarah took the medicine and slept more peacefully than she had in weeks. Emily sat on the floor beside the couch, staring at the empty space where Buddy used to lie, listening to the clock tick loud enough to hurt. Every sound outside made her heart jump, hoping for pause on the porch that she knew would never come. What Emily didn't know was that the man who bought Buddy wasn't just any man. His name was Marcus Reed, and the faded emblem on his jacket wasn't decoration. He was part of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, a group most people crossed the street to avoid. Marcus had joined years earlier after losing his own daughter to illness he couldn't afford to treat in time. He never spoke about it, never let the memories rise to the surface, but when he saw Emily that morning, small and brave and breaking, something old and painful cracked open inside him. He didn't buy the puppy because he wanted another dog. He bought the puppy because he couldn't stand the look in her eyes. Marcus drove Buddy to the clubhouse on the outskirts of town. The engines roared, metal and leather and a reputation built on fear. Buddy trotted between boots and chains without hesitation, tail wagging at strangers who laughed in surprise. Marcus told the story quietly, not asking for anything, just explaining why his chest felt tight. The room went still in a way that mattered. These were men who had buried friends, lost family, and been judged their entire lives by what people thought they were. They understood sacrifice better than most. Within minutes, phones came out. Contacts were called. Wallets opened. Not a single camera recorded what happened next. No one posted about it. They didn't do it for attention. They did it because sometimes the world gives you a chance to fix something that once broke you. Money was collected fast, more than enough for medicine, more than enough for rent, more than enough to breathe again. Then someone suggested something that made the room hum with agreement. They decided to return Buddy, but not quietly, not hidden, not like they were ashamed. That evening, as the sky darkened and the streetlights flickered on, Emily sat on the front steps staring at nothing. Her mother slept inside, breathing steadily for once. The house felt too quiet, too empty. Then the ground began to vibrate. At first, Emily thought it was thunder, but the sound grew louder, deeper, until it felt like the earth itself was waking up. She stood as headlights flooded the street, one by one, then dozens, then more than she could count. 150 motorcycles rolled in like a tidal wave of sound and steel, engines roaring in unison, a sight so powerful the neighbors poured outside in disbelief. The bikes stopped slowly, respectfully, lining the street in perfect formation. The engines cut off, leaving a silence so thick it pressed against Emily's chest. Marcus stepped forward, Buddy at his side, leash loose because Buddy didn't need it anymore. Buddy saw Emily and bolted, paws flying, joy exploding in his small body. Emily dropped to her knees on the pavement, holding him, crying into his fur as if she were trying to pour every tear she'd ever held back into that moment. Around her stood men the world had taught her to fear, watching quietly, many of them blinking a little too hard. Marcus knelt down and placed a thick envelope on the ground beside Emily. Inside was enough to keep the lights on, the fridge full, and Sarah's treatments paid for until help arrived. No speeches were made. No promises were demanded. Just a simple nod, a shared understanding that kindness doesn't always look the way we expect. One by one, the bikers returned to their motorcycles, engines roaring back to life, the sound no longer frightening but somehow comforting, like a guardian leaving watch. In the weeks that followed, Sarah grew stronger. The color returned to her cheeks, her laughter found its way back into the house. Emily went back to school carrying a story no one would believe unless they'd seen it themselves. Buddy slept every night at the foot of Sarah's bed, his small body rising and falling like a promise kept. The street where the motorcycles had once roared returned to quiet, but something had changed forever. Neighbors smiled more. People held doors a little longer. The label they had placed on others didn't stick the same way. Years later, Emily would understand what truly happened that day. It wasn't just about money or medicine or even a puppy. It was about broken people choosing not to stay broken, about scars turning into bridges, about love traveling in unexpected forms and arriving exactly when it's needed most. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that humanity still exists in surprising places, please like this video, share it with someone who has lost faith, and subscribe to the channel so these stories continue to be told. Before this video ends, take a moment to comment below and tell us what part of this story stayed with you the most, because your words matter more than you realize. Somewhere tonight, a child is making an impossible choice, and somewhere else, someone you'd never expect is ready to answer it, proving that even on the darkest streets, hope can still come roaring home.